Now for this next chart, we look at global average internet speeds 1990 to present with a trend line extending all the way up to 2050. This is a chart that is interesting for a couple of different reasons. I've made a much more detailed video about this chart and the historical implications of it in this tag up here in the upper right hand corner. However, that is more of an advanced video, and this is part of our Data University series, so it is simpler. This chart is also an opportunity for us to get more practice with the logarithmic scale, which some people still have difficulty with. So the horizontal axis is time, of course, calendar year 1990 onwards. 2023 is over here, projected up to 2050. And this vertical axis is internet bandwidth speed, but at a logarithmic scale, so each interval is 10 times more than the one below it. If the same information were on a chart where the vertical axis was a linear scale, the shape of this line would be very different. It would be flat, 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 and then almost vertically straight up. The logarithmic scale is useful for showing exponential trends. That is why it's always a favorite of futurists. And therefore we see that in the early days of the internet, the early 1990s, so even before the World Wide Web and graphical user interface, there was low bandwidth dial-up modems that very few people had in their homes, and only certain people even had in their offices. As the internet began to take off, the bandwidth rose. Many people did not have internet in their homes even in the late 1990s, even in the United States, let alone in other countries, because there wasn't enough to do on the internet at home. Some people would still go to their offices on Saturday just to use the internet that was there in the office because they had no other place to access the internet from. And remember, this is bandwidth of wired connections only, excluding mobile connections. As the bandwidth rose, more types of things were possible over the internet, thereby enabling new businesses and new types of activities. In 1995, if someone got on the internet for the first time, all you could really do was send emails and maybe look for a few pictures, and the selection of pictures were not that many, and the resolution would have been considered poor by today's standards. As time progressed, e-commerce became possible, both because of the number of people on the internet, itself a product of more bandwidth, on top of what could be done over the internet, shopping for goods and paying for them with your credit card online. As more bandwidth rose, new types of things could come into being. YouTube itself was only founded in early 2006, and the early years of YouTube were very limited. Videos were limited to 10 minutes in duration. The resolution was very, very grainy by today's standards. Some of you may be old enough to remember that. But as bandwidth rose, more technological disruptions could manifest, all of which had to do with dematerialization. As I've pointed out elsewhere, in 2004, there were 9,044 VHS cassette rental stores in the United States. They also carried DVDs in some cases, but 9,044, and they had to be in prime locations within cities because easy access was the key to the success of such a store, because people had to rent a cassette or DVD, watch it, and then return it again. So they didn't want the store to be too far away given how many trips they had to make. Now there's almost no such stores remaining, maybe one or two in the entire country, because something like Netflix became available, as did YouTube premium services, Hulu, HBO Max. All of these video streaming services have all these films and TV shows on them, and all these VHS cassettes and DVD stores are gone. Therefore, all those shops are gone as well. Similarly, an on-demand service like Uber became possible once bandwidth rose, and that of course is mobile bandwidth, but such a business could not exist much earlier than it did because you needed the smartphone revolution for this to occur. YouTube channels, where some people are earning a lot of revenue, on top of so much information being available for nearly free other than the time you have to spend watching ads, is a huge revolution. The next thing to get disrupted are education, as well as just work, because working from home is permanent due to rising bandwidth. The Zoom and Microsoft Teams capabilities of today are still very primitive compared to what they will soon be as bandwidth rises. And that is why this chart is crucially important in terms of predicting further technological disruptions. And that video that I mentioned earlier that I linked in the tag in the upper right hand corner will tell you more about that. But this chart is one to keep an eye on because it shows how exponential bandwidth increases are continuing to progress and on a very steady trend. And this chart is, of course, in the description box below. And you can see that it has footnotes supporting all of the data points used to create this chart. It's from futuretimeline.net. Thanks for watching.